site in the world significantly. And as a memorial, we wanted to have this model as a memorial in the gardens of the hotel. Little did he know that it will become so famous that they had to cut the gardens of the hotel from the rest of the hotel because there would be visitors who are not guests and wanted to see the model. Then it became a whole thing to manage. They had the different entrances, they had bathrooms, they had gift shop and everything, and people paid a lot of money to see the model. Somewhere in the 2000s, the hotel eventually was sold and transformed into apartments, as we call that, residences. You have a name for that, condos, called the Holy Land Project. They kept the name Holy Land, but can you see the big tall tower and buildings at the bottom? That's it. Holy Land Project. So everything was sold and become private, and the model was transferred to the museum here where it is. Imagine they moved it, took a year to cut it into pieces like pizza slices and move that from there to here, glue everything together. You know, you had to also create the infrastructure. The model is not just the buildings, also the valleys and the hills. Everything is to scale. So when it rains in Jerusalem, the water flows the same way it flows here, or the contrary. That's the model. Now, where we are standing is more or less Mount Olivet. Okay? So we are looking, the first thing we're looking at is the temple. Today on Mount Olivet, you'll be looking at the dome of the rock in the mosque. There, you'll see the platform. So the temple is not the whole structure, it's the one in the center. Can you see the tall building there? This is the temple. Around it there are a few courts. There's, you know, it was divided. Not only the high priest could enter the temple. You understand that? The Holy of Holies there, only the high priest, and even once a year only. On the outside you have the court of the priests. The Levites were there with their choir and singing everything. The altar was there. We don't see the altar, but it's just there, in the open between the temple and the first wall with that green door. The altar of the sacrifice is there. And then you have the other court, the court of the Jews, male and female. And all the rest, the big courtyard around it, is called the court of the Gentiles. What does it mean? Everybody could go there, Jews and Gentiles. Why would there be a place for Gentiles? Herod built the largest temple in the world. You think only the Jews wanted to see it? The Jews came for pilgrimage, yes? But Romans, Greek, people from all over the world, they wanted to come to see that. That's a marvel of the world. One of the Roman historians says there's a few marvels in this land. One, a temple with not one statue. Isn't that amazing? There's no statue. The people did not understand and why there was no statue. It was difficult to get the pagans, the Gentiles, who had so many statues and so many gods, that there is only one God and he's not visible. You could make a lot of jokes on that. And they did not refrain from making jokes on the God of the Jews. They said, of course he looked like something. The Roman thought he had the head of a donkey with two long ears. That's why the Jews hid it inside the temple and did not allow people to see, because they were ashamed of it. When Titus took the temple and the destruction, he wanted to be the first to go there to fight that God with a head of a donkey. Of course, there was nothing there. And you know what he took? What he took? The menorah. Maybe he thought the menorah was the divinity. And he carved the menorah on the triumphal arch that you can see until today in Rome. If you go to the Forum in Rome, there's the triumphal arch of Titus. On the inner arch, you can see Roman soldiers, victorious Roman soldiers, taking the vessels of the temple and also the menorah. That's the last time it was seen, the golden candelabra. So there was nothing else. It will take 300 years for the Romans to understand this idea of one God that has no shape, but is still powerful more than the others. when Constantine converted to Christianity. So at the corner, we see a big fortress. Can you see that? This fortress is called the Antonia. Remember that the first one who made Herod the king was Antony, before Augustus. So when he built the temple, he added a fortress named after Antony. That fortress was also given to the Romans, which means there was a Roman presence overlooking the temple. The Jews did not like that. When you read Josephus Flavius, first it reminded them that they were under Roman occupation. Even when they were at the holiest of the holiest for them, the Roman was there. And Josephus said also some of the Roman soldiers were spitting on people, urinating, doing faces, all kinds of things and gestures, mocking the Jews down below. Not surprising, when the rebellion starts, the first position to be taken is the Antonia. And the crowd, the Jewish crowd, goes up and throws the soldiers down from the Antonia. What else do we see here? On the right side, here, we see two pools. Can you see that structure with two pools?
Can you point to it?
Yeah, with columns, a lot of columns, and pools. One a little bit lower than the other. Just next to that gate, there's a small gate. It was called the sheep gate. And the New Testament tells us so close to the sheep gate there was a pool called the Pool of Bethesda. Have you heard the story? It's a story with a paralytic, the man that was healed at the Pool of Bethesda. It was found. It was where I think we're going to see it. So the Pool of Bethesda there, close to the sheep gate. Yeah. Now let's continue. Follow the wall. Follow that wall up to the pool. You know it turns, but behind it there is a kind of arched stone wall. Can you see there? It's in the form of a crescent. This is where is the garden tomb today. That's one of the possibilities of the place of the crucifixion of Jesus and the place of burial of Jesus, Golgotha and garden tomb. That's why I say one possibility, because most of the Christian denominations, they go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Okay? And the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is that direction. Okay, we'll go around and I will show you. It will be more visible from the other side. What do we see here from here? You see that the main entrance of the temple was from the south. From here, you see the staircase, and all that on the left side is called the City of David. Over the City of David, you have the poor areas and then the rich area. Can you see the villas versus the favelas here, down here? And the valley that separates us
Villas,
from
City of
Mount
David.
is called the Kidron Valley. That's here. Okay, let's move around. Find some shade. You know what? This way.
Here or all the way down to so when we go to the okay, so when we go to the
we know at the west of Jerusalem, which is also the west of the model. Again, the model is also oriented. North is the real north, east is the real east. So we are facing the western part. This area with the towers and the palace here is the King Herod Palace here on the right. You see the gate there. Today is known as Jaffa Gate. And from that gate you can see 4 walls starting. See one wall that goes straight towards the temple. You see that? You see 2 that are coming to the left. The inner wall and outer wall. Can you see that? So let's go to the inner wall. And why are there so many walls? It's just the city kept growing. And they added more walls. As people were living outside, they added more walls and walls. So they are called, the one there, all this side is called the first wall. Then the second one is there, the inner one. And the third one here. The city kept growing over the time. Now from here we can see the entrance to the Antonia. Can you see that staircase with the double gate there? Okay. Why I mentioned the Antonia, don't know. But the tradition is that Jesus was brought to Pontius Pilate at the Antonia fortress. That's why he was, that's where he was judged, that's where he was tortured by the soldiers. When they charged on him, they put on him the cross and the crown of thorns, and he was sent to the place of crucifixion. We have to say that the place of the crucifixion, the Golgotha, has been identified by Queen Helen, or Saint Helen, the mother of Constantine. So she's the one who comes to Jerusalem to look for the holy places. That means that's the first time Christians can have a shrine to holy places. Before that, Christians were in hiding, let alone build churches. And Queen Helen comes to here and finds the temple to Venus that she was told was built over the tomb of Jesus. So she has the temple dismantled. She finds the tomb underneath, and she builds a big church there that was called the Church of Resurrection. Only later, in the Christian period, it will get its new name called the Holy Tomb, or in French, Holy Sepulchre. Okay, where is it? Of course, at the time of the model, there's no church and no temple to Venus. Can you see there the wall, the second wall, the one, the inner wall, where it passes just below the Golgotha, the Antonia fortress. Can you see the staircase? So you are on the staircase and you are going down on the stairs toward us. Okay, and then you have a wall. Let's make a hole in that wall, and then just after it you see a kind of hill made of stone. You see that? So that represents the Golgotha. Okay, now at the time of Jesus, that third wall did not exist, which makes sense. The people were put to death and buried outside of city wall.
Go.
But then in the 50s AD, the third wall was added.